Hello and welcome back to my YouTube channel. I am painfully aware of the absence. So to be honest, I kind of wanted to use today to have a bit of a catch up and actually just talk you guys through exactly what's been going on. So in terms of training, because this is mostly why I started this channel, was to document my progress and kind of talk about the behind the scenes stuff. And to be honest as well, just give me a space to go into more detail about things that I can't quite cover in that length on my Instagram channel. That is where most of my action happens. So if you don't follow me already, it'd be great to have you over there. It's at bethfit.uk for all things progress, lifestyle, etc. So let's backtrack, because obviously I did my very in-depth series in the lead up to my competition in May, as well as my very first ever novice competition in January. And I absolutely loved filming that series because, as I said, for me, it was so great to be able to obviously just voice exactly what I was going through. And as I say as well, just have a proper lengthy discussion about things. It was kind of like a video diary for me. It was incredibly therapeutic and actually really necessary probably for getting me through it. And I'm so glad that it's had the response that it has. So let's talk about what's happened with regards to my training since then. So competed in May, obviously was really happy with the whole thing. If you haven't watched it already, I highly recommend just having a quick flick through that series. So the plan very much from there was to book in, I think I actually had my eyes set on a competition in September. Again, so we did that competition just to get the experience, get a bit of a base level understanding of like where I was at with my progress. And then the plan was to book in for September, because literally just after my competition, the qualifying totals were changed by the federation. So there was a bit of a considerable jump. So my aim wasn't on that day to qualify anyway, it was just to go and get experience. So my plan after that was to basically have a good few months to build, drill down on a few tweaks, etc. And then book in a competition in September with the view of, okay, let's really start to push the total and challenge it now. And then I think a kind of broad idea was to then go into 2023 with a good understanding and then hopefully hit qualifiers for nationals this year. Alas, that was not the case. So basically that September competition ended up getting cancelled. There were some issues, I believe, with the venue. But it came at quite a good time. I had some personal issues that suddenly came out of nowhere. But we've had some health issues going on with the family for quite some time now. To be honest, a lot of it was just like relatively plain sailing, but then my stepdad out of the blue had to have a quadruple bypass in October. We found out about September time. So my training at that point, the competition got cancelled, so we were kind of like, okay. But then essentially all of this stuff started happening and I just got completely thrown off. I hit a really rocky point with my training where I just was not mentally invested in it. After my competition got cancelled, I kind of lost a bit of motivation anyway. And then, as I say, all of this happening, I don't know if anyone watching has ever had a situation like that where it comes completely out of the blue and it's just scary. Like, we knew he had some issues, so he had some scans done, got booked in for an angiogram, like a 95% chance that we'll just put a stent in to drain the block. So we were a bit like, oh, okay, this is good news. I basically then got a call from my mum on the day and she was like, yeah, lol, that didn't happen. So he had the angiogram, they've obviously gone up to assess what's been going on, and they basically found that all three of the main arteries were blocked. He'd grown a new one, like Darwin style. Obviously, we don't know over what length of time, but your body's just incredible. It was just insane. So he's grown a new artery to compensate for the blocks, and that has also become blocked. So literally overnight, we went from literally just needing to have a drain on one of his arteries to a full-blown quadruple bypass. And they were really putting the pedal on, this needs to happen quickly. So, and we'd had a family holiday booked in September that had been in the works for quite some time. That obviously then ended up getting cancelled, and it was an incredibly tense, high pressure situation, only for a couple of weeks. Recovery was really hard for him, and he's done amazingly well. So update now in February, he's completely pretty much back to normal. He's just been skiing like the man's Superman. And as I say, if anyone's been through it, like, you'll know that day where he went and had his operation was just horrific. There was nothing like it. Just so anxiety riddled, and I don't think we'd quite wrapped our heads around what it meant. You're literally hooked up to a machine that's keeping you alive. Like, they basically shut your body down. Obviously your heart stops, so you've got this machine that's pumping around blood, that's pushing oxygen around your body. It was just insane, and it was like a good few hours. It was just a horrific day. So it was just basically at that point in time, one thing after another. Obviously the competition got cancelled. I then kind of lost not just mental but also physical momentum. At the time I changed coaches and then changed back coaches, so there was that kind of thing impacting it in terms of like programming and where I was at with it all. I was just a bit all over the place, and then all of this happened, and so in terms of my mental priorities anyway, it kind of just completely shifted. It was fucking rough, I'm not gonna lie. It was a really hard couple of months. In October, so I think it was around that time, I kind of got my flow back and I was starting to get a little bit excited about it, but then there was all of this going on in the background that just meant mentally I was not there. So I definitely built up physical momentum in terms of the mechanics of my lifts again. I started feeling confident. I'd built back up some of what I'd lost, I felt. And then I basically was at the peak of a block. We were starting to push numbers. I was doing a heavy triple deadlift and I finished the last rep. There was just something not quite right with my reset, and I finished it and I was like, fuck, something's not right. And my coach was there. He trains in the same gym as I do sometimes. And I literally just out of nowhere, I can't quite describe it. It wasn't like something had gone into spasm, but just deep in either like my glute, my lower back region, just something felt like it had gone, or like it just went. And he was getting me to do bodyweight hinges and bodyweight squats, and I shit you not when I say, like, I could not hinge past about here. Like, this was my range of motion. It sucked. I was in a lot of pain, just incredibly like uncomfortable. So I actually managed to do a squat session 2 days later, like some heavy pause squats, and then the next day I just could not. I could barely walk. Luckily, sort of luckily, in reflection, I'm not entirely sure, I went away with my boyfriend for a week on holiday, and mentally it was just the break that we needed. Well, it was set up to be this again as a whole other story. The holiday ended up being a shit show. My boyfriend got COVID just before we went. I then got the norovirus. Like, I was so sick. On like our second day, there was an insane thunderstorm out of nowhere. Bearing in mind we went to Crete, that's why we picked there in October, because we knew that it'd be really good weather. It was like pretty much guaranteed. There was this massive thunderstorm, like the airport got shut down, flash floods, like it was on the news, it was bad. It was just horrific, and that day I got so ill, like I so ill. Kind of got a bit better, but obviously then the weather while we were there was just not great. And then a few days later, my boyfriend got the same thing, but like when I say 10 times worse, like scary ill. He was like throwing up for, I shit you not, 12 hours straight. We didn't sleep. Like, it was the type of like, I am genuinely concerned that I'm gonna have to take you to a Greek hospital kind of ill. Thankfully it was a 24-hour thing, but it lasted the entire 24 hours. And because of the weather, we ended up extending our stay just because the weather was starting to clear up. And this was a day we were due to fly back originally that it happened. So thank God that didn't happen. Everything happens for a reason. But because we had extended our stay, we had to change rooms. So trying to get him from one side of the hotel to the other, it took like 20 minutes. It was about 100 meters. It was awful. So that's why it wasn't exactly the rate that we needed, but still we managed to get away and just refresh a little bit. Anyway, so I had this week off training and just a bit of a break from everything. And at that point, my stepdad had come home. He'd come home like literally the day before we flew out, which was amazing to see him. It was hard, really hard, but he did so amazing. I'm so fucking proud of him. He's Superman. I spoke to my coach and he was like, right, we just need to get you into training. So I had physio, and we basically thought that the injury was something related to my SIJ, my sacroiliac joint, right at the bottom of my back. So we basically just tried to get me doing the movement pattern as soon as we could. So I spoke to my physio about it, and the best analogy that I can give is, if you were to get into a car crash, getting back in your car after that is going to be incredibly anxiety fueled, like it's not going to be a good experience, because mentally you get in that car and you're like, the last time I was here something bad happened, and that was exactly what we tried to avoid with my body. So i.e. doing a deadlift, and rather than it being actually painful, my body just freaking the fuck out, because we're like, well, last time you made me do this something bad happened. Similar to squats as well. So yes, there was discomfort in terms of my symptoms. So for example, when I was hitting the bottom of my squat, it felt like there was quite a lot of pressure on my lower back. It wasn't painful, but it was just trying to avoid that mental panic. So essentially for the first 4 weeks, it was just building my confidence. I didn't deadlift for that first month until just my day-to-day pain had sort of subsided a bit more, but we were squatting. But when I say it literally took me an hour of warm-up sets to build from, I think we started on 40 kilos to about 70. Bearing in mind at that point I was repping out 110. So it was a big knock of confidence, and that was literally just set after set after set after set after set. I was doing 12 to 15 warm-up sets just to build to that confidence physically, actually just allowing my body to adjust to it. And I get to the point where at the top sets it was quite comfortable, but that's what I say, we just wanted to avoid too much time between it, because your body just goes nope. Next steps was obviously then reintroducing deadlifts, of which I was freaking out at 40 kilos. That went okay. I hit about, I think 60 started to be a sticking point for a few weeks, so we introduced some blocks just to reduce the pressure off the floor, but get my body through that movement pattern. And then pretty much from November, I would say, to start of January, maybe back end of December, across that time, massively built confidence. We were getting to a point where I was hitting above 100 for both of the lifts. So for squats, I was taking 105 for doubles and triples, I think. And for deadlifts, I think I hit a 105 double as well, which, bearing in mind, weeks before that, I was terrified of even putting 40 on the bar. It was the mental progression, as well as obviously physically letting my body adjust. Dealing with pain responses, so they would feel pressure, but just being able to push through that and go, it's not pain, I'm okay. It's just pressure on my body freaking out. So that was where we were at. And then at this point, obviously I didn't do the September competition, obviously, but my coach was running a mock meet for the team in January. So my plan, I think we probably decided this in about December, was to compete in that and just see where we were at, because obviously at this point we had quite a lot of momentum. I wasn't 100%, but I was doing everything. And so we were basically going to use that mock meet as a marker or a gauge on where my strength level, my confidence was at that point, to see, okay, so when should be a sensible idea to book in a competition for 2023. Bearing in mind as well, at this point, I am now in the Open, so I turned 24 in December, and that the juniors cuts off at 23. So I've literally got till I'm 40 to compete. So it was kind of a no pressure, but if we want to compete this year, let's just use that as a bit of a gauge to see then how far we would have to go, for example. So January hits, I got to a point where I was pushing pretty good numbers, I think just after Christmas, so we hit a new block, and bearing in mind that we were looking to compete about 4 weeks later, the aim was just to start reintroducing singles. So I just remember it was my first session back, things were feeling really good. I'd taken my last warm-up rep and it was flying, it felt solid, I felt confident. So I literally had an RPE 6 top single squat. I did it. On the way up, I felt something go. That's the only way I can describe it. It wasn't like a pop or a ping, just something went and didn't feel right. And I hit the top of my rep and my face just went. I went sheet white. My coach was like, okay, something's not right there. And he got me out, just immediate, no panic situation, but just got me doing exactly what we did last time. I was like, it's happened again, it's happened again. I didn't need to say anything. It was just exactly that same feeling. Got me doing bodyweight hinges and squats just to loosen it up, and again, just to prevent your body going into shock and completely seizing up. And it was just the exact same symptoms. Again, I got my range of motion and my hinges back a bit more. And actually, to be fair, I was very uncomfortable that night, but it felt okay the next day. My boyfriend was like, don't train. My coach was like, just see how you feel. Come to the gym, do your bench. If you want to try deadlifts, try deadlifts. To be fair, the first couple of warm-up sets were fine. I literally hit 70 and then it went again. I was like, fuck, I don't know what to do at this point. I think my coach saw that and he was like, okay, so there's clearly some underlying issues here that need addressing. He was incredibly reassuring. Basically what he said was, look, it's nothing to do with form. It's not like you've just gone balls to walls and just been like, I don't care about form, and something has therefore happened to your back. We did some tests and things like this, and we basically worked out we think it's to do with my hips. Either there's some weaknesses there or whatever. So at that point, we had a call. I had a bit of a breakdown, obviously, because suddenly I'm faced with a competition I was supposed to be doing in 3 weeks and being a powerlifter that can't squat or deadlift. So I was like, fuck. So we basically took a week of just not training, actually just chilling, I believe, and just exercising how I was feeling about it. So I was venting a bit on my stories, and I have this tendency to, when something bad happens, just try and put a positive spin on it. And we kind of realised, you don't need to do that. Like, sometimes things are shit and it's no more than that. It's shit. Just let it be shit. It's okay that it's shit. And I got myself, so tying into this pre-Christmas, I had a lot more going on with my family. Unfortunately, another family member's health took a bit of a turn for the worse, and like lots of stuff just snowballed. So again, mentally, I just found myself, this was like the cherry on the cake. I took a massive spiral, like, I was basically having daily breakdowns. I was in a really bad mental health space. I found myself like genuinely feeling depressed. And I basically then started panicking that was happening, and it just ended up being this whole spiral of like, fuck, everything's shit. I don't know what to do. So I stripped everything back. I was like, right, where can we start? There's something simple. If you can't train right now, or it's not sensible to train, and you're actively avoiding things, you're not looking after yourself, what's one thing that we can do? And I just really noticed my routine was going out the window. I just like wasn't looking after myself. So I was like, that's where we need to start. It's gonna be fucking hard, but pick one thing and stick at that. So I really worked on like my morning routine. Every single morning, I stopped going on my phone when I woke up. I literally just got myself out and I was like, go for walks. Just get yourself out for 20 minutes minimum. If you want to keep walking after that, keep walking. If you need to come back for work or you're just like done, do that. And that genuinely was such an amazing turning point, and I just really took it into my own hands. And I was like, right, change your perspective. Stop focusing on what you can't do. If you're going to get caught up in it, it's going to bog you down and you're going to fall. You're going to put yourself in a pit, and it's going to be really fucking hard to get yourself out. So focus on the things that you can do. It might not be a lot, but at least you've got things that you can do, and it's not forever. So that's what I was doing, and then I kind of milked, getting to the gym and putting on an outfit and doing like active recovery and stretching, and we basically did some rehab work. So after about a week, I had a call with my coach and we put together a bit of a plan, which was daily rehab work to do at home. So just a series of movements that take about 10 minutes to do every single day. So things like Copenhagen holds, some stretching, TLC for my hips and my hammies. And then we basically focused on, right, well, we can bench. So actually what we did was he put me down and let me do just a single lift. So he let me bench at this competition, which was really good for like morale. We didn't necessarily prep for it because obviously there were so many curveballs at that time. But that was a really good day, just like with the team. I was like, well, I can't squat a deadlift, so let's just go and push some bench stuff. Matched my previous comp PB for a lesser RPE, and bearing in mind, obviously, as I say, we didn't like plan a peak or anything. It went pretty well, and it was good. And then with training, we were like, right, let's just get you wham. So we had basically a ton of upper body stuff, a little bit more for aesthetics, but obviously, again, focusing on what we can do. So lots of back work. I was benching on all of my sessions, lots of variations, so still focusing on that. And basically for the first 4 weeks, we had very minimal stuff. He was like, I want to get you doing a squat pattern. So I was doing goblet squats, upright with a raised heel. So obviously we weren't aggravating the back, but just getting my body moving through that range of motion in that movement pattern as best that we could. And we did some tests after a little while as well to see what I could do and what I could tolerate. So things like split squats, doing with a rear foot elevated, front foot elevated. We tried a hack squat, we tried leg pressing, basically just anything to get my legs working and just see what we could tolerate. So then of those things, there were a few things that pissed it off, but a few things that we could work with. And he was like, right, that's what we're going to start off with in terms of your plan of action action for training. So we kind of collated all of that. He put it into practice. So lots of upper body work, but just these basic leg exercises. A, to maintain strength. B, similar sort of thought patterns to what we had before to build, basically just get me in those movement patterns so my body didn't freak out. And C, also to build trust in my legs again. We worked out after that after the initial injury, coming into kind of rebuilding it, I just was freaking out. I was just like, just get up. I wasn't trusting my legs. You could see a bit of a shift in things like my form, not crazy, but just like a mental adjustment of I just didn't trust my legs to get me up. So a lot of it was about that as well. We had basically a big adjustment call to like put it into context, just check in, see how I was doing with it all mentally and physically. Okay, how are we adjusting? Is everything still feeling good? And it was. So this was amazing anyway, because bearing in mind, I just realised I've literally been talking for like 20 minutes straight. Bearing in mind at that point we had done not a lot, and I was obviously still very nervous. I think the first hack squat that I did, it replicated some of my symptoms. He was like, right, just strip it back, like very small range of motion. Don't put anything load wise on it, just get your legs moving. So it was just like adjustments like that and just taking a few things into consideration. So initially it was just then we were increasing ranges of motion. It was like no weight added, but just that small markers of progress. Off the back of that, we kind of then built in a bit more leg work. So this is now as of about 3 weeks ago. So it is currently the 24th of February and I'm approaching the back end of week 3 of this block. So I think all of this is 8 weeks ago now. So this next program, we had this big review call and it was sort of after the first initial 4 weeks. Okay, where are we at? How are we feeling? What do we want to progress with? And we had a very collaborative look at my program. So we basically put in a few more aesthetic things, and I was speaking to him about, look, while all this is happening, it might be nice just to change up some of my goals. And so we've really focused on like aesthetics, building. I'm actually looking to go into a cut very soon as well, which I'm hoping to document. So just a few changes in the works like that. And over this last 3 weeks, what we've done is introduce another squat pattern. So I've been doing goblet squats twice a week and doing a hack squat. We've now introduced a belt squat, which is now starting to try and get me to hinge and sort of mirror the movement pattern that we would do with a low bar squat. Again, building up my faith in that movement pattern. And we've built in a lot more leg work. So I've got like leg extensions. I've got some glute work to now try and rebuild the connection to my glutes. So just a glute movement of my choice. And we've also got in there a hinge. So on my day 4, and we purposely put it on day 4 just to see how that build up of fatigue, how that affects me. And it's just a hinge action of my choice. He said it could be like a barbell or a dumbbell RDL, a B stance RDL, a hyperextension, anything like that. So I've started off with a B stance RDL because I get quite a good connection to my glutes, but that sort of safety net of my back leg being able to push onto that, which also has been going well. So no replications of pain, discomfort, anything like that so far. So good. Obviously then more core work just to really help with my brace, a lot of like rehab stuff. And we've now, as of that review call, put on a bit of a timestamp to get a barbell on my back and just do my first barbell back squat with no weight and just see how it feels. No pressure, just see where we're at and use it as a bit of an assessment. And we've got then a review call after that week to then discuss next steps. So I'm pretty sure that's everything caught up, basically just been rebuilding. Honestly, the main aims have been building trust again in my legs, doing actual physical building in terms of like hopefully building some muscle mass, and a bit of a change in pace in terms of mentality. So my personal reflections on it all, because it's been a whirlwind, and as I say, all of this is like contextualized by just a shit show of stuff going on in my personal life. I don't somehow kept afloat, I'm not really sure. It was really shit to begin with. I was wallowing in it a lot, and then I kind of just went, do you know what? I don't hate it. I would so much rather actually spend the time on it now. As I say, I've got till I'm 40 in this open category to compete. I don't want to rush things just for the sake of competing. I'd so much rather, even if it meant not squatting or deadlifting for the next 6 months and basically starting from scratch, but knowing that I spent that time on rehab work, I felt confident, I had done a lot of strength building in other ways. So that's my personal perspective on it. It's like, I've got time. I'd rather know that I did the work, that things are okay. I didn't rush into it for the sake of competing, edging up numbers each competition, gaining experience that way, but I wouldn't be able to put my best foot forward right now. So it's, in my opinion, so much better to wait and do it when I can. In terms of next steps, I basically want to document what that looks like. So I just wanted to do a fat catch up initial video, and then actually from one of the girls on my team, she suggested just doing like a weekly roundup of training and hopefully just show you what the build up to, I guess, what will next be my first next squats and deadlifts, and what this injury recovery looks like. So I'm hoping it'll be quite informative. As I say, for me, it's incredibly cathartic sitting here and exercising all of this. There's stuff that I've forgotten about and buried in terms of like how I've been feeling and how much has been going on behind the scenes. It's not just been a case of my injury and how I'm dealing with it. Like, there's so much. Thank you to anyone who has watched this. I hope this has given a bit of an insight, and I hope it explains why I have been quite absent as well. And hopefully we can just get a bit more regular from here. But I think this was the video that I needed, and hopefully you guys needed as well, just to know what's been going on behind the scenes, and what everything will look like from now on. Thank you for still being here. As always, if you have enjoyed this, like, please subscribe to my channel, like, save, all the rest. But yeah, very much needed. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for letting me vent. I hope you have found this good as well, and hopefully I will catch you very soon.